where do we start with England and this debacle?
Well, that was the worst performance I've ever seen from an England team. Ever.
The long, long wait is over. A Wembley roar to hail England's history makers.
Hello and welcome to the Ball Breakdown Podcast, The Road to Berlin, Episode 3. With me, Johnny, Dana and Matt, and England top of the group, but Southgate and poor performance is tip of the tongue. Guys, what are your thoughts on the 1-1 draw against Denmark?
Oh my God, it was shite. It was absolutely shite, Johnny. I mean, it was predictably poor as well. I think that's the worst thing about it. We all went into this thinking it was going to be with the same type of game, and it absolutely was. And you know what? I thought we were doing all right. Not great, but okay before we scored. And then, of course, we went 1-0 up. And again, for the second game running, our response, our reaction to going a goal up was to sit back. And I mean, the average positions, let me just bring up the average positions for those watching on YouTube. Harry Kane is playing as a left wing back, and that's ironically the position that he was playing when he tried to play that switch over to the right hand side, and then we lost the ball and Hullman scored. But like, we were so hapless out of possession. The pressing's just not there. Or it was, because we did win the ball back at one point quite high up the pitch. Declan Rice won it, and then I think a shot was blocked. But then after that, it completely disappeared. In possession, we were so poor, and it's quite funny because the goal that we scored comes from a really poor ball from Jude Bellingham into Bukayo Saka. It's so, like, the angle of it's so off, and it's completely overhit. Obviously, Kyle Walker-Seals manages to recover a position that England should have really lost the ball in. I mean, they did. If the Danish fullback didn't, or wingback didn't decide to sleep, then they would have recovered that position. It was just terrible. Honestly, it was a really, really bad performance. I think it's important though to note that England are top of the group, as you mentioned at the top, and that we didn't lose. We will progress, likely, barring some ridiculous situation. I think we will qualify. But Southgate just hasn't found the right balance of the team. There's players getting in each other's spaces, Bellingham and Foden most notably. Kane's dropping deep, which is fine. Like, that's what we've seen for club and country for almost like over a decade now. But that's only fine as long as there's runners beyond him. There isn't. No one's providing a threat on that left-hand side. Saka on the right was really doing my head in. I know I proclaimed my love for him last week, but he just didn't go around the outside. Nobody goes around the outside anymore. Everything is coming in central. It's proper annoying. And everything was in front of Denmark. It was, the only time that we really stretched them was 2 minutes after Ollie Watkins came on. So it was awful. For the second game running, the best thing about that watching experience was the pizza at Playbrew. And that says it all.
Yeah, and Matt, what was your thoughts on things as well? I mean, the pizza was good, by the way. I got I think I got it was pork, pepperoni, some peppers. I think that was the other one I got. And then, Matt, I think what pieces did you get? I mean, obviously, tell me your thoughts as well. But
mate, I was gonna because it was the best part of the evening. I completely agree. Pizza was absolutely outstanding. It was a margarita pizza slice with some seasoned fries as well. Bit of garlic mayo. First time I've been to the what's it called? Is it the something Baker pizza? I can't remember the name of it. But
Lucky Ted's.
Lucky Ted, that's it. Absolutely outstanding food. 10 out of 10. England, absolutely shite. It was a dreadful watch, and it's quite unforgivable, really, given the players at Southgate's disposal. I mean, we're playing at such a level, so far below the sum of the parts of the side, the quality that we have. He's just not getting a fraction out of these players as to what he should be. And yeah, it was predictably really poor. Again, we put ourselves in a fantastic position, and I don't know if it's mentality, I don't know if it's tactics, I don't know if it's a bit of both, because these players shouldn't be players who lack confidence and feel like they should sit on a lead. So yeah, everything after that opening goal was really poor. I mean, the goal itself was a tad fortunate, and you could say theirs was quite fortunate as well, albeit a great strike. But I think we were the worst of two pretty average sides on the night, and I just couldn't believe how poor we were out of possession, how deep we sat as well. It was baffling, really. I just don't understand it. But then in possession, you'd still think, well, when we get the ball, we'll do something with it. But we were absolutely atrocious in possession as well. The balance, as Dana said, was absolutely all over the place. Again, down the left-hand side, you've got Foden cutting in, but you've got no width outside him. Trippier is always going to just stop on the halfway line and turn on his right foot. You've got Trent in there, who might be a good midfielder. He might be able to play good long diagonal balls, but there's no one running in behind. So who's he going to pick out? Nobody. And again, like Harry Kane, he was arguably our best, but I don't even know if he was our best midfielder, to be honest, but he may as well have been playing midfield because he was coming deep and he had no runners. So I just don't understand what Southgate's trying to do. It very much feels like England sides of the past where we're trying to squeeze individuals into an 11 and we're not maybe doing it for the betterment of the system and the structure of the team. So, yeah, the only thought I've got really on top of that is if this continues, the only thing that will be coming home this summer will be the England side on a flight back to Heathrow in about a week and a half if this stays as is.
Yeah, look, I get it as well. Like, there's a lot of disappointment, isn't there? And, I tweeted last night that we stunk the gaff out of this tournament so far. I think if you look at the underlying numbers, that those XG numbers aren't particularly favourable for England or for any side that's played England so far. I think two games, both under both under 1 in terms of XG, so not really much a chance creation. And it's a pickle, I think, for everyone, isn't it? And where you go, well, you've got all these great players, you've got all these outlets, you've got all these players that are playing fantastic for the clubs, but for whatever reason, this time around for England, there doesn't seem to be the right balance or fit or cohesion or even just, I think, the confidence to play as well. I think, there is a lot of pressure on England this year in this tournament to win the Euros. There's no doubt about it. Everyone was saying, you got to a final against Italy, you probably arguably could have won the Euros as well in 2021. And is that pressure getting to the team? I would hope it's not. You've got some really good winners in that group. You've had players that have won the Champions League, someone who very recently has just won the Champions League in Jude Bellingham. But I think there's a lot of things you can potentially unpack from the squad. I think on last year or the previous years, you've had Raheem Sterling on the left-hand side who would give you that width or that running behind and was very clever in his play. And Saka was there as well. But also we had to change the system too. We were playing a back three for most parts. And it was always a Gareth's playing with a handbrake on with a back three. But sometimes that gave you the balance or a back five, as you will, with the back three and the two double pivots. That gave the attacking players the ability to roam and have the freedom they needed to. But this time around, it feels like you said there, Dana, people were getting each other's way. Harry Kane was coming too deep, which has always been part of his game, especially since I think Jose Mourinho came in charge of Spurs, where he really introduced that to his game, where he'd come in and someone would get him behind, and it was really beneficial to his role. And when he doesn't have the outlet, and Jude Bellingham would normally come in front of the striker for Real Madrid, but he's not doing that at the moment, and you don't have players who would like to come inwards. It just creates a very big cluster in midfield where everyone's getting each other's way, the passing's off, no one has enough space, things are slow, there's no real outlet, and that's why teams can press you a lot better and get into really good areas and make things a lot easier. And I think when you look at John Pickford as well in goal, you need an outlet out wide. You need someone to maybe spray the ball out to if you want to alleviate some pressure and hopefully someone takes it down. You want to have the ability in goal kicks as well to have someone in a really good position so you can play the outlet through the channels and really get in behind the teams. But there was so much you could pick out of that team or the performance yesterday, which was poor. But I don't think Gareth or the squad need to know that. I think it's fairly obvious where the improvements can be. I think the players, I know that they come out and said that, top of the group, it's fine. And yeah, it is to some extent, but it kind of reminds me of to relate back to Middlesbrough, that I remember when Tony Pulis was in charge of Borough, we were in the top 6, but everyone hated the football we played. And sometimes that's where you get the balance of football and also results as well. But in terms of the squad as well, like we are blessed with superstars. It is just a case of how do you get that to work, and it doesn't always work right, but you need to get the balance right. But Dana, go on.
Yeah, I was going to say, on the goal kicks, you mentioned them very briefly there. It's something that I noticed during the game, and James Alcott did a really good video on this earlier on. Jordan Pickford keeps going long, and there's nothing wrong with going long from a goal kick. And you noticed this during the game yesterday, Johnny, when we were watching it at Playbrew, the distance between the midfield and Harry Kane is ridiculous. And so if he wins that first contact, the midfield's so far behind Kane, they can't catch up. Denmark are always going to win that second ball. And I think there was a stat after the Serbia game that Jordan Pickford at that point had played the most long balls of any goalkeeper in the tournament at that point. And the thing is there's times where you see Declan Rice come short to receive. Trent Alexander-Arnold would come short to receive. There's Trippier on that left-hand side that can be that pinged ball over there. Why is Pickford going long? I really, really don't get it. Like,
I could understand it though, Dan. I think you can, if you say like, oh, well, Kane's going to trap the ball down, you bring others into play. But the problem you've got is, when we were saying with that gap, he's have to hold the ball for a longer period of time, so that improve, or people will come in to press him, and he's going to more likely to lose the ball. But then the old saying is, the quicker you play the ball forward, the quicker it's going to come back to you. So you need to find a way to either play through, or you have to try and play a way where, if you are going to play it long, you have to play it in a wide position, so you've got the recovery there to make sure you can win it back if you lose it, and then you can press forward again and press forward again.
But even if Kane wins the ball, there's no runners beside him. And this is it, like, it's so frustrating. And that, to be fair, there was times yesterday that I noticed it. Foden, for example, I think off the ball and on the ball he was better yesterday, but then we're not quick enough in possession to release that ball to whoever's making that run. Like, Trent in midfield is everyone keeps saying experiment that's gone wrong. I can understand why Gareth Southgate has put him there. I think I kind of think about this in an FPL perspective. I might have put that player in, and the thinking behind it was decent enough, but the actual end product has not reaped the rewards. And with Trent, it definitely hasn't. Like, he's not releasing that ball quick enough, and he needs to be that core part of our midfield. It's just not working. We need to play him right back if Trent is going to get in that team. But also, another point, our players look absolutely goosed. Absolutely goosed. And I'm like, they look absolutely fucked, Johnny. And it's literally like group game 2. Trippier's out on his feet at the end of the game like he's just done the bleep test.
Well, it technically has, really, with the kilometers that you run. The heat as well could be a factor, but when you think about tournaments as well, you are taking that break already, and you do tend to have to get back up to match speed fairly quickly. But there has been a number of injuries in the squad. People are still coming back to full fitness, and that is again part and parcel of the squad that we've picked. So if you wanted to pick more players, obviously, if you're looking at the left back position, if you knew Luke Shaw wasn't going to be fit or fully fit for the Euros, there is players at home who could have really took his place. Ben Chilwell, there's Tyreek Mitchell, there's Lewis Hall at Newcastle. If you want to go down the Newcastle, I'm trying to just think of 3 names on top of my head who I could potentially put in at left back. Alfie Doughty. So is he English or is he Irish?
He
I can't
is,
remember. English, yeah. So great. So there's more options, Don. So you've got if you wanted to bring those players in, you have to. But unfortunately, we have brought in players who are just not 100%. I think there's rumours that Jude Bellingham needs surgery post the tournament. Luke Shaw, that is still injured. Who else? Well, Mark Gay, he's been out for a while. John Stones was injured prior to the tournament. You've got Harry Kane, who was injured for the second to last game of the Bundesliga, and the last game was also he definitely missed the last game. And you're looking at the players and thinking, well, if they're not fully fit, that's probably the reason why we're not looking as strong as we need to. But there is definitely more to it. But Matt, the experiment of Trent, Dana alluded to it as well, that he's there for like an FPL reason. Gareth Southgate said it was an experiment. We don't have a natural replacement of Calvin Phillips. But do you think it's time that we should be experimenting with Trent Alexander-Arnold midfield or not?
I think there was a window of opportunity to do so, but again, I feel like the writing was sort of on the wall with this going in the tournament. we felt and looked and seemed underprepared coming in beforehand. There was loads of question marks such as this heading in. So I'm not surprised that it's still the case. I think the luxury we've got is that we have 4 points on the board now. One of the things I said to you guys when we were watching it is thank God we beat Serbia, because it just gives us that little bit of room. I mean, we shouldn't be experimenting at this point. We should at least know our best 11 or be close. I feel like we're further from knowing our best 11 now than we probably were even before the Serbia game, to be honest. So it's a tough one because we shouldn't be experimenting, but I still feel like we need to, because there are certain questions and problems that desperately need addressing. Otherwise, this Euros campaign isn't going to be lasting as long as we hoped it would. So it's a case of trying to fix something, try and solve some of these issues, whether it's taking Trent out, which I think is the right thing to do, maybe taking Ford out. I know we'll discuss the changes we've got later on, but I think the Slovenia game's got to be approached as a game we can't fully experiment in terms of an overhaul of the team like we maybe would have done had we gotten through, or be through already with 6 points. But we definitely need to try and change a few things, because otherwise we're not going to be in this tournament for much longer. So there's definitely problems that need to be solved still, but maybe it is too late to properly overhaul the team.
I think Southgate's hung him out to dry, Trent, to be honest. We have seen Trent in the Premier League for many years now, and his best position is right back, where he can switch between wide right and that right-hand half space and link up with the right winger in front of him. We saw a snippet of that against Iceland, and I know I didn't watch all of that game, but that was a particularly bright part of that match. And I know that, to be fair, Kyle Walker's been decent enough for us in this tournament so far. So you either play Trent at right back or you don't play him at all. And I just think that in this system right now, the way that we're playing, he needs to have those runners in behind. It's happening a little bit, but not enough. Not enough for a player like Trent to really hone in on his skill set. Right now, we're seeing more of his deficiencies. Like, he's never in the right position. I think his body position when he receives it is awkward. And also, he's not getting that service that can really spotlight Trent's world-class passing ability. So for me, I mean, at times he can do better himself. As I said earlier, he needs to release the ball games. But ideally, you would want a little bit more preparation than this. I know Southgate got a bit of stick for saying that we don't have a natural replacement for Calvin Phillips. And we'll get into it in a minute. There is a player on the bench that probably will get like 2 minutes, a measly 2 minutes in this tournament, that I think can plug that gap.
Yeah, and I think just on Trent though, I think where he said like Gareth hung him out to dry a little bit. He's been not Gareth, but we've had pundits, we've had fans, we've had players, we've had everyone saying Trent can be in midfield. He can be a midfielder. He can play there. You pretty much give everyone the matches, the fire. Well, sorry, the matches, the wood, the petrol to create the fire. And now there's a fire on the pitch. People's going, "Oh, there's a fire there," not putting it out. So it's like, I don't think you have to try. I think you have to try these things. You know, the way that he comes into games for Liverpool, where they play the back three, he moves more centrally and can play. It, in theory, it should make sense, but sometimes it just doesn't work when you're in that stand position. You've got to try and floor there. You've got to try and find the gap when you are in those moments to really impact the game. But I just don't think he can impact it as much in the position where he's starting there than when England possession. But there's also another but in this. England haven't been good enough with the ball, and if England were good with the ball and much more better in possession, then like you were saying, the dinner, you get the better out of Trent. But in terms
of what it reminds me of, Johnny? Just a kind of final point on this. It does remind me of Borough. Earlier on this season, when Michael Carrick was experimenting and we kept losing the ball and then we'd concede a really low XG chance. It genuinely reminds me of Borough. And I know
there's
a lot of Borough
parallels.
fans, 100%, and there's growing parallels as well. Like, I know Borough fans will say a lot about Borough and England and how there's similarities, but genuinely, what I'm watching from England is not too dissimilar to Borough at the beginning of last season.
Yeah, and look, Carrick had to play that certain way and then did change it. Can Gareth change it? And Danny, you said about another midfielder, and Matt, you've alluded to him as well. But we had a question from Jake from our Telegram chat, and he asks, what was the point in bringing Adam Wharton to the Euros when we have zero intention playing him? So, Danny, What was the point of bringing Adam Wharton to the Euros with no intention of playing him?
I'd like to hope there is an intention to play him, because I think he would be needed in that England midfield right now. Like, everyone's talking about Cole Palmer. What difference would Cole Palmer make? He's just going to be another.
You'd only cluster it, yeah. You'd only cluster the same thing.
It's just another player that's going to want the ball to feet and not get in behind. Like, for me, Adam Wharton, I've watched a bit of Adam Wharton since the Euros started. Looks after the ball well, which is something that England did not do against Denmark. And he only needs 1 or 2 touches to get the ball moving. He's a very forward-thinking midfielder. And in that respect, in terms of only needing like 1 touch to set it and the second touch to pass, reminds me a lot of Michael Carrick, actually. He could receive on the half turn, so he could be that first pass from a short goal kick should Jordan Pickford play a short goal kick. And he can sit in front of that defence and allow Rice to get forward, is what we've seen him do under Mikel Arteta at Arsenal towards the back end of last season. So in theory, I think Adam Wharton is the perfect midfield partner for Declan Rice, but I just don't think that Gareth Southgate has the bottle to play him, unfortunately. But in the game against Slovenia, hopefully he could give him some minutes.
Where's your bottle, Gareth? Where's your bottle? We're speaking of
lost
players,
it at Middlesbrough getting us relegated, remember?
In 2009. Speaking of players that got us relegated in 2009, Harry Kane, Matt. Got a bit of stick yesterday. What did you make of his performance?
Barring his goal, he was extremely ineffective. He's good at coming in deep, and he's not exactly being helped by the players around him, giving him the option, because we know he's fantastic in terms of his passing ability, and he's got great range. One of the best forwards in the world, I'd say, in terms of passing, and he's not been given that option. But he's coming way too deep, and because he's coming way too deep, it's not allowing the midfield to push up, it's not allowing the defence to push up, and we're just sitting in our own defensive third the whole time. So there's an argument that he's not being helped in that respect. But I don't understand why he's coming as deep as he is. I don't know if he's frustrated that he's not involved, but I find he's been relatively or massively ineffective, especially in the game yesterday. He seems a bit like the whole team, really, a little lethargic. He seems a little bit like he's lacking energy. I don't think he's fully fit, I'll be honest. So I think as an all-round performance from a number 9, we didn't quite see the quality that we had against Serbia. He was even holding the ball up a bit better, but he just looked so far off it yesterday. I'm not surprised he was took off. So as much as Harry Kane gives us loads of pros in terms of, if he was given an opportunity, I'd bank on him to take it 100%. I just think his all-round game yesterday was poor, but he's not just to blame for it. I think he'll take a lot of the flack, but I don't think he's helped by players around him, not advancing. Either side of him, as we mentioned, Bellingham wasn't running beyond him. There was no one running in behind him. So when he picks up the ball, even when he is too deep, he can only either turn and try and run with it and run into an opposition player, or he's got to go backwards. And he's not the type who'd then spin in behind the defender and then run in behind. So, there's numerous reasons as to why this current side and why Harry Kane's getting stick. I don't think that the system's working with him. I don't think he looks 100% either. So it's another big conundrum, isn't it, with this whole England side at the minute. And we need Harry Kane firing, and I don't think he's fit at the moment, which is a bit of a concern.
Yeah, well, I can't even say this, but I actually agreed with Alan Shearer yesterday. Like the sheer horror of it all. But I agreed with him where he was on about Harry Kane, actually, and says when he related to his career and said, when I got older, I needed players in and around me to do the work because I could finish in the box, I could hold off players, I could make things happen. Harry Kane can still do those things. He's still not all these. He was a lot in better condition what Alan Shearer was at 31. That's for sure. But it's just a case of he does need the players around, like you said, Matt. Needs the players, needs pace to get in around teams, break the lines. If you want to play with another centre forward in Ollie Watkins with him, then we can definitely do that. But I just think he needs the players to get around because he is really, really effective. You don't score 40 goals in the Bundesliga if you weren't good enough. Albeit you can maybe chat about the level of Bundesliga to the Premier League. Is there much difference, etc.? Don't want to go into that discussion, but there's been a lot of negatives from like this chat so far. But was there any positives at all that you guys seen from the game yesterday?
We didn't lose. Is a bit of an obvious one. I think Mark Gahey, if we want to pull out individuals, I think again he was a positive. You know, he made one mistake, but then rectified it instantly. So I really like that moment from him. But genuinely, barring that, I think maybe Phil Foden had a better game. Still not convinced that the way he's playing within this system is right for the team as a whole. But he looked a bit livelier, looked like he was maybe trying to prove a point. And I guess defensively, you know, we didn't really, they didn't create too many clear-cut chances. There was a lot of shots from range. I think Højbjerg had a few, albeit a few of them come pretty close, and there was a few that were fairly uncontested. So again, you know, there's an argument that a side with more quality with that much time and space to have so many shots at our goal, albeit from range, might have came off worse in a different scenario against a better team. But I guess we didn't allow Denmark to really create all that good of a chance, and then they did score from a worldie. So yeah, it's weird, isn't it, to think that we come into this tournament thinking that our strengths would be attack and we'd probably score loads of goals, but the likelihood is we might end up conceding them because the weak link was the defence, right? That was the big thing. And yet we've been so ineffective going forward, and our defence has probably been the best area of the pitch. Maybe it's because we are spending so much time defending and we're sitting back so often. That might have something to do with it, but I do find it rather ironic that the biggest positive to come out with this performance and probably the tournament so far is the actual area of the side that we thought was the weakest coming in.
Yeah, I mean, it can be easy to not concede goals when you're doing the conga line in your own box, to be honest. But I mean, there was a few positives. I think, obviously, you know, you can say, we didn't lose, but I think what we have said is we've been efficient when we have created the chance or been given an opportunity, we've put it away, albeit we've only had 2 really big chances in the tournament. And again, that is clutching at straws a little bit to say that we've been efficient in front of goal, but we have been. Matt Gahey, I think he's been fantastic for us in the back four, and the goalkeeper have been absolutely fine. And, you know, there's still more work to be done, of course, but then I don't know if you had any more positives on that side of things. So I don't think I can give too much, but I thought Gareth did the right thing about 50 minutes where he took off the players that weren't performing. I think it doesn't matter who you are, you do need to have that level. If you're not performing, you need to get dragged off, basically. But yeah, I don't know if you got any more positives from the game at all.
I do, but I want to just kind of add to what you said, or maybe contest what you've just said there. I think taking off Saka and Kane, well, it was Trent in particular, actually. Taking off Trent before putting on Watkins is so counterproductive because Watkins is the exact type of player in regards to him making those unselfish runs, trying to, like, you know, being on the shoulder of the centre half and making those runs in behind to stretch the defence that Trent would love.
Yeah.
And so
Gallagher wasn't the sub. Gallagher wasn't the sub. He was definitely like a Wharton, or maybe like basically anyone but Gallagher to play in that midfield, because he's just a runner and doesn't contribute much else to the game, I don't think.
It's like he doesn't have faith, isn't it, in some of these younger players? He's not really got faith in them for some reason. We may as well just throw them in.
Yeah, he's brought them at the end of the day, hasn't he? Which you'd think that you give them an opportunity, but it kind of, I'll get onto the positives in a second, I promise. But I've just thought now about what Gareth Southgate said after the Serbia game, that he was worried and concerned about the fitness levels of the team, hence why England defended deeper. And again, we saw it. So it's like, that's a particular concern that, going back to my point about them looking goosed, that's a bit of a problem, right? Because none of this team looks fit. I don't think I can point at a player and have confidence that they are fit and that they won't like kind of gradually decline in their performance output. So maybe that's why Gallagher came on, much like when he came on against Serbia. But I completely echo the positives. I just want to add that Watkins coming on, I think he showed within literally 2 minutes of him coming on why he's been picked. I mean, Southgate doesn't usually go with more than 2 strikers because he's remarked in the past that sometimes the strikers can get frustrated with their lack of game time and they could be a bit problematic. But Watkins is there because he's a completely different profile to Kane. And I know that it fizzled out it started well and it fizzled out, but I just thought that was appreciated from a viewing perspective, that we actually saw a player getting behind and try to stretch that defence.
Well, I'll pull the flip side then on Denmark. Then, do you think they deserve more from the game? I know there's a lot, of course, that you can talk about in terms of like. I know the pundits were saying, "Oh, well, we thought Denmark deserved to win the game." Personally, I didn't think they did. I didn't think they didn't do enough. One big chance we've given away in 2 games now. One obviously was punished. Well, not really punished. Wasn't really a big chance really, but it was just a moment we gave away. But do you think they deserved more from the game at all?
No, but that's whilst acknowledging that they were good. And I think Kasper Hjulmand completely outdid Gareth Southgate tactically. One of the things that I was quite impressed by, and I rewatched the game on 2 times the speed, is how they dealt with Bukayo Saka. Because in the game against them at Euro 2020, he absolutely toasted them. He got a lot of joy at Saka, and he didn't get as much joy in this game because they were tight on him. Instead of defending the space, they defended the man, and I think that was quite impressive from them. I thought Højbjerg was really good. I agree with Matt. I thought that one of his long shots would end up powering into the top corner. But I was quite impressed with them. I think they worked the ball well out wide. They worked it well from the wide position inside. They had all those rotations, a little bit like, to compare it to Borough, Dijksteel, Crooks and Jones. And I think that they looked after the ball better. So I don't think they deserve more from the game, but I do think that they were good in it. So I'll credit them for that. I think sometimes we forget that there's another team on the pitch.
Yeah, I think one point that I took out of that game with Denmark is it was absolutely proof that individual quality can only take you so far. You know, they were just so much better of a cohesive unit. They absolutely done us in the tactical side of the game, and they proved that if you've got, you know, a team that's working as one with a clear instruction on what the players need to do, then that makes up for a lot of it. Whereas we had 11 great individuals who I think most of the time didn't quite have a clue what they were doing. I think Harry Kane even said in one of the post-match, I think it was Kane, he was asked on the pressing and why we're not utilising a high press when a lot of the players do for their clubs. And I think he said something along the lines of, well, we're not too sure how to do that. So again, it's like, is that even something that's being considered by Southgate, or is that something they want to do, but they don't know how it will work with each of the players? So it just, again, like brings up that argument there. And I think we've seen it with past winners. It doesn't matter who you've got individually. You've got to be a good team and you've got to have a clear instruction. You've got to work as one. And we look so far from that at the minute. That's the real concern. We need to start looking like more of a cohesive unit from back to front. So I think Denmark proved what a decent side could do. And it only makes me concerned that, you know, if we come up against a side that are just as good together, but also have that extra individual quality, that will get undone. I mean, they had more accurate passes than us. They had more passes than us in general. I think they had more shots on goal, which, yeah, really, you know, without sounding like an arrogant England fan, it shouldn't be the case, really. But, you know, Denmark did a job on us, really.
Yeah, it's got to simplify. I think it sounds very easy sitting here and on a podcast and going, oh, well, you need to simplify the game a little bit. But I think in terms of like pressing triggers, it's something that you can easily implement as a coach. I think you don't have to have an individual pressing structure. I think it's very much you can, if you needed to do it by the lines of like thirds, or you can even press in certain areas of the pitch. I think that's how you simplify that and get teams to work well. I think the best teams in international football, and I think it's really difficult to win a tournament like this because obviously not everyone plays together. But building a really strong base, simplifying the instructions, that will hopefully translate a little bit well. Because you don't want to overcomplicate things because you do not have the time with the players. But Matt, Dana alluded to it around obviously Ollie Watkins coming on. Obviously, we've seen Gallagher come on as well. We've seen Eze and Jared Bowen. Would you agree with Southgate's subs yesterday? But if not, who would you have put on the pitch yesterday?
Yes and no. I completely agree. I don't think Gallagher was the substitution for Alexander-Arnold at that time, especially if you're going to, you know, obviously bring on Ollie Watkins. That whole thing didn't make sense, the order of it. But I think the lack of control we had in the game was a huge factor. We just had no control of the game in midfield. We were losing the midfield battle, losing second balls. We needed someone who could get on the ball, take control of it, and maintain possession and retain possession. And I think, Adam Wharton would have been a good shout for that. Even Kobe Mainoo might have been. I didn't mind the other changes of Bowen and Eze, although I do find it quite strange that Gordon was the one he turned to in the Iceland game, and Gordon was arguably the bright spark in the Iceland game. And again, like with the Serbia match, we were crying out for someone to just inject the side with energy and get us up the pitch. It's exactly the same thing. And we said Gordon would have been good in the opening game for that. He would have been good again here. I think Eze is a very similar player, but I just find it odd that he's turned to Eze first over Gordon, but I guess it's much of a muchness there. But I think Watkins was a good change. And another thing that I found baffling was the fact that they had a back five that were, you've got Yannick Vestergaard in there who's got the turning circle of an Arriva. He's got no pace whatsoever. We were playing in front of them constantly. We weren't getting in behind or stretching them. And instantly within minutes, one run in behind from Ollie Watkins, and suddenly they're then pushing back 10 yards. They're then having to think about where's Ollie Watkins going to run in behind. They're starting to look over their shoulders. They might have to drop a bit deeper, get us up the pitch. So I think Watkins was a great sub. And we saw almost instantly that we created a chance for it. So, yeah, I guess he can take positives from that. But whether he, is brave enough to stick with maybe a Watkins in the next game, or start an Eze, or start an Adam Wharton over Gallagher, who knows? Because I think we've seen in the past, Southgate can be very, very loyal to certain players and maybe not as willing to give others a chance. And I think maybe we're in a position where, he maybe needs to start gambling on one or two to come in and maybe take their opportunity.
Yeah, I want to keep on the theme of changes, because we do have the Slovenia game now where Boro come up against Andras Spora, who we are all familiar with.
We all know what's coming here, don't we?
On this podcast, we 100% know that he is going to score against us. But I'll be really keen to hear everyone's changes, I think, for the next couple of games, for the next game, because there is a bit of pressure on it. That England obviously still have to get a result, whether it's a draw or a win, to secure the place in the knockout stages. So I'm really keen to hear what people would do. Would anyone like to go first on this and highlight the team? Matt, maybe you go first. Let's see the changes that you'd make, and why would you make them?
Yeah, so I've obviously kept Pickford in goal. I've kept the back four the same. Trippier, Gahey, Stones and Walker. I would, if we had Luke Shaw, we've said this numerous times, if Luke Shaw was fit, I would absolutely have him in there, because just having a left footer on the left-hand side in place of Trippier would just give us such a better balance and would allow someone to possibly overlap a Foden who was coming inside, but we don't have that width, which is why I put Gordon in, which I'll get to in a bit. I've put Wharton in alongside Rice. I just think, it's time for the Alexander-Arnold quote-unquote experiment to be over with now, and we need someone alongside Rice who I think can help dictate play and keep the ball and have the composure to, take one touch, give and go and get us up the pitch, not get caught on it as much. I was tempted to bring Bellingham back, but I'm just not convinced that's the answer. I think there's other answers in midfield that ensure we don't have to sacrifice what I think Bellingham would offer us in that number 10. I still don't think we should sacrifice Jude Bellingham in that position just to bring him back into midfield when you've got an Adam Wharton there. So I've got him alongside Rice. I've also got Saka. I've kept him on the right. I think he has been one of our better players and gives us a degree of width. Bellingham's still at 10. I've put Gordon in on the left-hand side. As much as, I'm sure we all want to get the best players in, I just don't think when you've got Trippier on the left, you should have Phil Foden alongside and down the left-hand side. We need some width. We need some pace. And we, if it is Harry Kane, for example, then Gordon could be a runner in behind who could give us an extra degree of threat down the left. And then I thought I'd put Ollie Watkins up front, and it wasn't just because of his fantastic cameo, but I feel like, again, we might be coming up against a defence that might be sitting relatively deep, and I'm worried once again with Harry Kane that we might play in front of them quite a bit. So I'd like to see Watkins given a go, let him stretch the defence and see how he gets on. And then maybe half-time, 60 minutes, if it's not working, you bring in Harry Kane then. But I just don't see anything changing too much if we start him. So like I said earlier, there's a few changes in there. As I say, we're not at a point where we can risk an overhaul, but we certainly can't keep things the same either. And I think Southgate's he's at a bit of a maybe make or break at the minute. You know, he needs to find answers, because if he doesn't, we'll go out of this tournament, and this is possibly his last hurrah. So this is a moment, I think, for him where he needs to find answers, and maybe a few tweaks here and there might help him at least get this team moving in the right direction.
I completely agree with Matt in regards to the overhaul. By the way, I think we can't afford to have these mass changes right now. And I think it would be interesting to see how Southgate reacts to this, because everyone can see that it's not working. I'm sure he can see that it's not working. He kind of alluded to it in his post-match. So it's going to be interesting to see the reaction and what he deems to be the solution. For me, the solution is pretty similar to Matt's team, actually. Pickford in goal, Walker right back, Stones and Gahey in the centre of defence. I've gone for Joe Gomez on the left, just because I'd like to see England build up with those 3 centre halves, the 2 in midfield, and then 5 up front. So Gomez, very contrasting to Trippier, who's been taking up really advanced positions on the pitch. I'd like to see Gomez hang back a little bit. Wharton alongside Declan Rice for the reasons that I mentioned earlier. I've gone with Bellingham still at number 10, Saka on the right, Gordon on the left. Similarly to Tom, I think Gordon will give you that direct approach. He's quick as well. And then I've gone for Kane up front still. So I just feel like that gives you more of a balance. It gives you more of an outlet on that left-hand side, which we haven't really had. Appreciate that Kieran Trippier is getting high up the pitch, but he's so right-footed, it's insane. So it's just going to keep coming in field, and we're not going to have that threat that can go around the outside at left back. So yeah, that's the team that I've gone for.
Yeah, and I've went a little bit different to you guys, and I actually went with a slight tweak in the system into a 4-3-3. And I've kept the same back four and back five really of Pickford, Trippier, Gahey, Stones, and Kyle Walker. But I've just slightly tweaked this in England into a 4-3-3, and there's a couple of reasons why I've done it. And I put Bellingham on the left-hand side of the three with Wharton in the middle, and then Declan Rice on the right-hand side. And there's a couple of reasons for it. I think Declan Rice is much better and has been this year, getting in ball progression for Arsenal and trying to get them up the pitch. And that connection with Saka has been really promising this season. But also, secondly, around Harry Kane. So Harry Kane is becoming deeper and in games, and he's getting in Bellingham's way, and vice versa. So I've decided to put Bellingham just a little bit deeper. So when Kane does come in, it allows Bellingham to make that run straight and try and get him behind. But he's also joined by Anthony Gordon on the left-hand side and Saka on the right as well. And when Kane does come into a little central in that midfield area, you do want Saka and Gordon to really make those inverted runs in behind, really try and press the back three if Slovenia were to do that. You've also got Bellingham in there as well to make sure that he can make that run as well. And then when you do have that, you still have your base of Wharton and Rice, but also you're able to create that space for Harry Kane to get into those central areas, and then Bellingham to make that run as well. So, and also when you do see Kane come in central as well, you've got two players who are more closer to him as well. So you'll have Bellingham on one side, Rice on the other, and if you do want to play a little deep, you do have Wharton there. So it's given Kane options. So if you think of like the triangles that you have, you're going to have Gordon, Bellingham, and Kane on one side, and you'll have Kane, Saka, and Rice on the other side. So two nice little triangles there where you do, if you are going to hold the ball up, if you are going to play the long ball, you do have the ability there to give and go and make the run if we need to. And you've got someone coming up and trying to create this, who's got the space there to really make a problem and make those vertical runs to the back three or back five, or if back four, whoever they're trying to play. But I think that 4-3-3 will just give you a different dimension. It'll help us a little bit more with ball progression and also in possession too. We'll start to find those angles a little bit better than previous games, because I think right now it's too clustered in the middle. So if you try and take a player out of that, I think that'll really alleviate the space, and it won't give the opposition the space, because they'll just have a double pivot, or they won't do too similar. But I think it'll just give England the ability. So say if Saka did want to come in central, he's got the space to do that. If Gonzalez wants to do that, he's got the space to do that. If you want to play Ford instead of Saka, you can have that player who can fall around the middle as well. So it will give you different options.
I was going to say, interesting, none of us have gone for Foden.
Yeah, and I think Foden is probably just not the answer right now. I think if you are to play him on that right-hand side, it would be for Saka. I think that's just where you're going to get the best out of either of them. And unfortunately, that is the position we're in right now. I think Saka will give you a little bit more than what Phil Foden will. But if we were to play Phil Foden there, I think we need to play that 4-3-3 system and also make sure that we do have the runs in behind to get England up the pitch. I think Declan Rice would have to really start to be more box-to-box as well as Bellingham. And I think Bellingham can be... he's a better 10, and I think the 10, I think what Ancelotti's done with him is really highlights his strength as a player. But I still think he can do that job more box to box if he needs to. And I think it would take a little bit of pressure off him as well, playing that 4-3-3, because you're not always having to try and play through him. You can play through Kane there, and then you can really utilise players around him within that. So that's why I went with that, pretty bit more detailed in terms of anything. But I think it's just I think that would work better for England right now. But in terms of the predictions, guys, what are you going to go for Slovenia on Tuesday? Of course, it's a game where we have to try and get something from it to make sure we get over the line, which realistically I think we could even get beat and just go through. But we don't want to do that. We actually do want to beat. If you can't beat Slovenia, you may as well go home. But what are your predictions, guys, for the game on Tuesday?
Ooh, I've gone for a 1-0 England. I think it will be similarly shit and everyone will whinge. Quite rightly. I mean, I referenced that at the predictions for the Denmark game, but to be fair, it was justified morning in this one. And I don't think that Andras Barra will get a shot on target.
And the malt curse there. Matt, what are you going to go for?
Yeah, I've gone with a 1-0 as well. It's a bigger game than it needs to be, really. You know, again, I'm not trying to not be an arrogant England fan and all this, but like we should be through, and there should have been an opportunity to play some of the fringe players. You know, maybe rest Kane if he's not 100%, maybe rest Bellingham if he's needing surgery or whatever. But we're in a position now where we do need to win, and I think, as we discussed before we come on, there's a big chance if we finish runners up, we'll hit Germany in the last 16. And I think if we hit Germany, it could do us good in a way because it might kick us up the arse. But I think equally, if we play Germany right now, you may as well get our flight booked to come back with the form they're in. So we need to win the group, I think. And we should beat Slovenia. So I'm going to go 1-0. And I'm also going to predict that Andras Barra will have a shot from within the 6-yard box and it will miss the target.
Interesting. I was going to go...
You'll see it in the atmosphere. You'll see it in the sky.
I believe in Andras Barra. I believe in him. But I think the world has seen what we've seen in Andras Barra at the time. Good movement, getting great positions, but how many chances did that man need to score a goal under Chris Wilder? But yeah, for me, I was debating going 3-0 or 3-1. 3-1 probably Barra, so because we've all cursed this.
Yeah, we definitely have.
It's not 3-1 to Denmark, is it, Johnny? You're not going like Barra hat-tricky, are you?
No, don't be so stupid.
3-1 Denmark.
Pigs don't fly, Matt. But I think I'm gonna go 3-1 England. I think we will turn it on this game. I think we will have to make changes and we'll make tweaks, and I think we'll get it right. I think we have enough quality in the team to do so. But you know, it's a perfect game for us to really turn on. You know, you've got to try and announce and you'll at least try and find form in that third game, because when you do, you start to get momentum there. Those first two games, if you do get them right, you are able to rotate things, but more importantly, you are getting yourself into the tournament. And sometimes you can experiment in those earlier games, but you know, we've managed to get to this point. Let's try and turn it on this game, get things right, and then hopefully, fingers crossed, we can progress and do well in the tournament. But guys, thank you very much for joining me. To listeners and the viewers, thank you very much for watching and listening to us. Don't forget to give us a 5-star rating on your podcast provider. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the Ball Breakdown channel. We've got loads of content coming out this summer, mainly around Middlesbrough, not so about England, but that's why we're a Borough channel. But anyway, for right now, we're playing Slovenia, but it's a Southgate end of an era. This has been the Ball Breakdown podcast, and that was all the England chatter in the pod. Up the England.